Okay, all right. You've landed on Island 49. I'm your host, Weston Smith. Week one of the 2023 NFL season is finally here. I don't know why. I know it's only been 6 months, but for the last few years, every single offseason for San Francisco 49er fans feels like an absolute eternity. This offseason certainly did not disappoint. Obviously, with the Nick Bosa contract situation and that dragging on longer than we would have liked, and then everything that took place around Trey Lance and the investment that you made in the kid or lack thereof, from a time perspective, and now he's a Dallas Cowboy. So it felt rocky, it felt tumultuous, but nonetheless, here we are on the eve of kickoff. In fact, by the time this video is loaded, kickoff will be about roughly just about 12 hours away. Cannot wait for this season to kick off. I think this team desperately needs meaningful football to take place. So tomorrow afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, your San Francisco 49ers will be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, opening yet another season on East Coast time, which bodes well for me being on the East Coast, but not necessarily a benefactor, in terms of for how it might benefit a West Coast team traveling across country. That being said, what are we looking forward to besides the fact that it's, like I said, meaningful football is now upon us? The reality is, there are certain things about this game that certainly intrigue me. Now, traditionally, this team under Kyle Shanahan has gotten off to rocky and slow starts. I know there's been a couple years where they start 2-0, but those first game or two look a little rocky. So let's see how this goes. Spoiler alert, I don't expect it to start well. I just mentioned before all the turmoil in the offseason. You're heading into Pittsburgh, a team under Mike Tomlin, arguably one of the best head coaches in the NFL, has never had a losing season in his tenure. And by all accounts, Pittsburgh's offseason's been pretty steady. Some ascending talent over there that are about to get another year under their belt. So I know they're excited. I know damn well they will be ready to play. I know the 49. This is interesting to me because, as fans, we travel very, very well. If there was a team that might travel better than us, it might be the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's in their home stadium. So really looking forward to seeing how much red might be in the stadium tomorrow. But let's peel back the onion. The thing that I'm most intrigued about is number 13, Brock Purdy. Last year was a lot of fun at the end of the season. You've heard me time and time again use this term lightning in a bottle because that's exactly what it was. Expectations now are drastically different. By all accounts, this is a team that is in win now mode. Got it. We've made the decision that Brock puts us in the best position to win now within this offense, and executing on the things that Kyle Shanahan wants to execute upon. But as I mentioned just a second ago, the expectations are different now. Like, hey, that young player who's very inexperienced, that was kind of creeping and nipping at your heels, is no longer here, right? Or where the team made this investment to be the future of under center, no longer here. It's you, number 13. How are you going to come out? How are you going to perform in this game? I love his grit. I think he's a dog. I think he's highly competitive, super intellectual, but what's that going to look like early on in this game and early on in this season? That's a point that really excites me. I hate to state the obvious, but it's certainly something that we all will be keeping our eyes on, as this is supposed to be the future of this team under that rookie contract that gives us so much more flexibility to sign people like Nick Bosa to the long-term extension, etc. So I am really honing in on the performance of number 13. There's a couple other things that I'm focused in on. Nick Bosa, what's he going to look like, right? Didn't have the full off season, certainly wasn't there through the majority of camp and participating in the preseason games. Pads are finally getting on. Now we know Nick is a specimen. right? We know he's an animal. I don't even need to ask anybody. I'm sure he was working out, and I'm sure he is in peak physical condition. But the reality is his physical condition looks drastically different in game mode with pads on, hitting each other. I don't know what that's going to look like. By all accounts, he's probably not going to be on a snap count. But fatigue will set in and probably will set in early. But let's see what the 170 million, 122 million guaranteed man looks like in week one. But the reality is like, deal is done. He's going to be a 49er for a long time. Yes, we're waiting to see what the contract details look like. We've seen all this stuff around the restructuring of Trent and Kittle and as recent as Arik Armstead today. What does that mean? Does that mean they're going to front load this contract? Are they going to backload it in the freeing up room, or to prepare to make a mid-season roster move depending upon how the season unfolds? Or is it just, hey, let's create a ton of cap space so we can carry it over to next year? Don't know. Remains to be seen. But really excited to just obviously see number 97 out there, and certainly have an impact on this game right out of the gate. What we saw is not unprecedented. I don't remember if it was last year or the year prior when TJ Watt was going through his extension and it got done in the 25th hour. All of a sudden he shows up week one, has a 2-sack game, right? Love to see something very similar for Nick Bosa. So two main things, right? What is the quarterback of the future going to look like? What is the highest paid defensive player of all time going to look like in this first game? They're going to be, in my opinion, the deciding factors, right? Is Nick going to be creative as much pressure? Is that intensity going to be there? Is going to have a full gas tank to really impact on the defensive side of the ball? And then certainly is the offense going to continue to hum like it did, once Brock entered the starting lineup? We'll see. Another thing that I'm really intrigued by, it's probably the better term, is how the defense versus the offense is going to look. Traditionally, at this point, entering the week one of the season or even the first few weeks, the defense tends to be leaps and bounds ahead of the offense. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Watching this defense play throughout the preseason, and I know, again, not every starter is out there and yada, 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 but, you had Hufanga banged up. You have Bosa just finally getting back. What's Mooney Ward going to be, right? That heel all of a sudden's creeping up. Is that going to keep him out of this game? If so, that's big for these, especially with these Pittsburgh wide receivers and an emerging quarterback in Kenny Pickett. And under new tutelage with Steve Wilks versus the Saleh, D'Amico Ryan system, this is by all accounts going to look different. So how is that going to unveil itself on the field Sunday? I have to believe that we're at a point where the offense might be further along than the defense, and that's scary, right? The defense has traditionally carried this team, especially when the offense has been asleep at the wheel. So what's that going to look like? I don't know. I'm really, really curious, because should this highly touted defense start to fall behind the 8 ball a little bit, might not be as clear a path to the playoffs as this team thought. So we'll see how it goes. I expect them to, as reps increase and they start to play with one another, I certainly expect them to get back to previous form in some capacity. But is it going to be a slippery slope here in the first couple weeks of the season? Who knows? There's a matchup that I'm really intrigued with, right? We all talked about, Mike McGlinchey moving on. What was the right side of this offensive line going to look like? I feel like the interior is at least solidified from a body standpoint, and who we expect to be the starters at left guard, center, right guard, and obviously, number 71 at left tackle, future Hall of Famer Trent Williams. Got to feel good there so long as the man stays healthy. But the big question mark is going to be the performance of Colton McKivitz starting at right tackle. And he's going to see a lot of TJ Watt. Why would you put TJ across from Trent, right? That's just kind of neutralizing your best defensive player. So, number 68 is going to get a lot of 99, and I don't know. We'll see. If he can hold up relatively well, I think that bodes well for the 49ers' chances in this game tomorrow. But, TJ Watt is a premier defensive player in this league, a perennial candidate for defensive player of the year. Got to think in Colton's first, starter type action with the expectations of it's his position to lose throughout the season. This might be a little bit more than he's ready to chew and handle. And I hope I'm wrong, but I expect 99 to give us fits, and that's going to create the need for Brock to be special in scramble, making plays off script. Who knows? And then the final piece for me is going to be the injuries, right? Is Kittle going to? I know he's questionable. He probably will suit up. Mooney, questionable. Is he going to suit up? You got Ray McLeod, which this expedited recovery. Is he playing? What's the return game going to look like? So there's just so many question marks right now. Forget George Kittle, the passing threat. There's a lot of playmakers on this offense. Only one ball to spread around, but his value and where he is most valuable to this team is being that sixth offensive lineman, putting him in motion, pulling traps, counters, etc. Maybe giving, Colton some support on that side of the ball in terms of, protection against TJ Watt. That's very much needed in this game in particular. So we'll see. These are things that we just want, I want to keep account of. Obviously, I'm as excited as you are to go watch our 49ers kick off the 2023 season. I am more than ready for my weekly mood to be determined by the performance on a Sunday game, Monday night game, Thursday night game, whatever it might be. But that's going to dictate my mood and my demeanor for the remainder of the week. And I think I'm ready for it. It's so crazy, right? Because I spend like 2 weeks after the season ends being like, breath of fresh air. I can breathe again. My heartbeat goes back to, a normal rate. And then I get so excited and antsy for the season. Obviously, when you're going through free agency and the draft and et cetera, and new additions, new toys, you just want to see them and collectively see what this team's going to be about. And then you get close to the season and you're like, here comes the anxiety all over again. I'm a full grown man. I am 40 years old. I should know better than to let a team that I have no control over, that I do not suit up for, to determine my mood. But I've been fighting this for 30 plus years and I just can't seem to shake it. Like, I am already a nervous wreck for this game. I'm a nervous wreck going in every game, even if I feel like we're going to walk away plus 40. Like, I'm just nervous. You never know. This is the NFL, right? Like, these teams, there's a lot of parity in this league. This boils down to how well prepared teams are, how well coached they are. I say this all the time and I argue. So I have a couple buddies who have played at the highest of levels when it comes to football. And we talk all the time about how our love for the game is not just watching the game. It's just the understanding of what goes into this game and how games can be won or lost before you even suit up. It's all about the practice. It's all about the preparation. It's all about being in the film room, understanding tips and tricks, etc., because those lead to the big plays. That pick six going the other way, that sack, that blown up tackle for a loss that inevitably becomes a forced fumble and maybe attributes to a turnover. Those things, while yes, they are executed on the field, they are prepared for well in advance. So typically week one, the winner, which team is more prepared? And that leads me to kind of my prediction here. Listen, I bleed red and gold just like the rest of you that might be listening to this this evening or whenever you have the time. But I don't know. There's just was so much conflict and turmoil in the offseason for the 49ers. Can't help but feel that that's going to trickle over. They'll be all right. They'll get on the right track. I'm not worried about that per se long term, but I'm just worried about how that lends itself to the start of the season. As I mentioned earlier, a team under Kyle Shanahan that traditionally has started very slow. We played in 2 consecutive NFC championship games. Midway through the season or in the early half, at least the early quarter of the season, you're like, flush it. it's done. Let's just get me to the next season, right? So like I think it's fair to assume that this probably will happen. I believe the 49ers can win this game. Don't know if I necessarily believe that they will. And look around. Look at the banner. Look who's behind me. Mr. Bosa, my faithful flag, etc. If I pointed to my right over here, you'd see an entire rack of 49er jerseys for just current players underneath bins of that are filled with jerseys of former players, right? Like I live and breathe this team, but I'm realistic. And the realist in me says this team hasn't been collectively able to gel and rid itself of the dark preseason cloud that hovered above us just yet. The only thing that's going to allow them to do that is going to be time, is going to be games. So let's get into it. If we walk away week 1 with a win, huge, huge, huge plus to start the season based on the way the offseason went. If we walk away with an L, if it's a relatively competitive game, scoring's kept close, not all is lost. It's not a light it on fire, flush it down the toilet, let's start all over. Good news here is we got 18 weeks of football, 17 games that our team will participate in out ahead of us. I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm going to do this all season long. So whether it's the morning of, whether it's the night before the game, I'm going to give you the few things that I'm invested in around that particular game, other than our team winning the game. That's the obvious statement. But what are the 2 or 3 things that I will be looking for and closely monitoring? And I'll keep record of it because I will be joining post game, well, the day after the game. So depending upon when the game, but most notably, it'll probably be like Monday evening on the East Coast time. I'll be joining Steph Sanchez on the 49 Carats pod. We'll be recapping the game, our thoughts, our opinions. So we'd love for you to tune into that. Obviously, go give Steph all of the support in the world. She's working her tail off. And is doing a fantastic job, whether it's the Nick Bosa impressions. And if you haven't seen the latest one, it was fantastic. And she even got shouted out on the local TV network, which is even more phenomenal for her. So Steph, shout out to you. And that's not just because you're so courteous to invite me on Monday evenings, but we'll have a lot of fun in that show. But I want to use some of the what am I looking for and looking forward to in this game as part of what I'll recap when we go with Steph. So I hope you tune into this. I hope you tune into, Steph's show on Monday evenings where we'll recap, the 49ers performance, good, bad, indifferent. We're going to talk about it. We got a long season out ahead of us. Don't lose our cool depending upon this outcome. Faithful for those of you who are going to be in Pittsburgh, stay safe, have fun, cheer your asses off. And then we'll be back. So from here, I'll see you guys on Monday. Again, this is Island 49, part of the We're Talking Football family. I'm your host, Weston Smith. Appreciate you tuning in. Hit the likes, hit the subscribes for the YouTube channel, leave comments, rip me apart, tear me to shit. I don't care. I just want to engage. I want to interact. I just come to give you my opinions. They're not facts. They're opinions. They're based on a wealth of knowledge, and following this team and this sport for as long as I have, but they're just my opinions, and I am open and happy to debate around them and love when people prove me wrong or make me think otherwise. So I encourage you to do so. But in the meantime, see you in a couple days. Go Niners.